Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, then you might know that for the last couple of years, we've done a recurring series called Dumbest Criminals. In these compilation videos, we take a look at some of the dumbest criminals and crime stories that we've covered so far in a given year on Crimes of the Week. Well, as hard as it is to believe, we're already a quarter of the way through 2023, so we decided it was about time we brought you all the first quarterly installment. Be sure to look out for another one of these videos near the end of the week that will be covering cases exclusively from our Crimes of the Week International series. One thing to keep in mind is that these segments have not been edited since they appeared in their respective lists, so references to specific days of the week, as well as other small details, may no longer apply. Also, we're bringing this back by popular demand, so be sure to let us know in the comments section below if this is still something you enjoy. With that out of the way, let's get to the video. Authorities in Polk County, Florida say that a couple of suspected burglars are facing charges this week after one of them apparently made the bizarre choice to call 911 during the middle of one of their alleged crimes. According to reports, the situation began sometime in the early morning hours of New Year's Eve when police in the community of Poinciana received a call about a burglary at a local Dollar General store. By the time officers arrived at the scene, the perpetrators had fled. But thanks to the store's surveillance cameras, they were able to identify one of the suspects, a 23-year-old man named Martin Gonzalez Garcia. While authorities initially weren't sure where to find Martin, their luck continued just a few hours later when police received a mysterious 911 call. The caller hung up before saying anything, but authorities were able to trace the call to a local residence. They arrived at the scene to find an unsecured door, which they entered through to see if everything was okay. Once inside, officers quickly came face to face with none other than Martin, as well as his girlfriend, 22-year-old Liz Roldan Ocasio. The two were allegedly in the middle of another burglary, only this time, bizarrely, they had called the cops on themselves. According to police, an explanation behind the whole strange series of events was reportedly offered by Liz after she and Martin were taken into custody. The 22-year-old admitted that she had been the one who had made the mysterious hang-up 911 call. The reason? She said that she had planned to ask police for help moving their belongings, aka the items they were allegedly stealing from the house. Oh yeah, and she and Martin needed a ride to the airport because they had planned to spend the weekend in New York. During another interview, Martin also reportedly admitted to burglarizing the Dollar General store. Needless to say, Martin and Liz never did make it to New York that weekend. Instead, police joked on their Facebook page that the couple were being given different accommodations at the Polk County Jail. According to reports, the couple have each been charged with one count of burglary of a residence. Martin has also been charged with burglary and theft related to the Dollar General incident. Authorities in Bakersfield, California say that they are searching for a couple of bumbling arsonists after they tried to torch a local business only to find themselves on fire as well. The incident began sometime in the early morning hours of January 2nd, when the pair of suspects arrived at Servicio de Inmigración. The Plans Road business reportedly provides immigration, naturalization, and tax services, mostly to farm workers and their families. Thanks to Ring security camera footage, we know that the two suspects were holding jugs that were filled with some kind of an accelerant, likely gasoline, which they proceeded to douse on the outside of the building. We also know that they were woefully unprepared for how quickly their fire would spread. When one of the arsonists bent down and ignited the accelerant, the entire area they had just doused whooshed up into a blaze. In an instant, the man was treated to a leg full of flames, courtesy of some of the gasoline he had evidently carelessly spilled onto his own pants. He quickly ran out of view of the camera, clearly panicked by this obviously unexpected turn of events. The second suspect, meanwhile, fared no better. After doing what can only be characterized as a cartoonish scramble away from the encroaching fire and falling twice in the process, he also ran for the hills, with what appeared to be his back and butt covered in flames. According to reports, firefighters were quick to respond to the scene and managed to put out the fire in about 10 minutes. Thankfully, most of the damage to the business was apparently localized to its garage, though the owner says that smoke did seep in and damaged other property. Some of that property reportedly belonged to the owner's friend, who was storing stuff for their car wash business in the garage. That being said, a GoFundMe set up for the business to help pay for repairs has already exceeded its $5,000 goal. As for the two arsonists, at the time of this recording, it appears that police are still trying to identify them. If nothing else, though, hopefully this instant dose of karma has helped them to rethink their life choices. Representatives from Georgia's Atlanta Police Department say that a 27-year-old Ohio woman is facing several charges this week after she sprayed multiple people with a fire extinguisher during an argument with employees at the airport. The incident began at around 9:30 p.m. on January 17th, when 27-year-old Jennifer Holder was approached by employees and security staff at the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. According to the employees, Holder had just eaten at the airport's Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant, but had left without paying for her food. When confronted, Holder claimed that someone else had paid, walking away as staff tried to ask her further questions. As Holder was followed by employees and security staff, she allegedly began to get more and more agitated, yelling and creating a scene. She then ripped a fire extinguisher off of one of the walls and kept walking, proceeding to discharge the device anytime an airport employee tried to approach her. It was at this point that the police were called. By the time officers arrived, however, things had reportedly escalated once again. Holder had tried to open a secured door in Concourse D, and when staff rushed to stop her, she blasted 3 flight attendants in the face with the fire extinguisher. Several officers were also sprayed by Holder as they moved to take her into custody, and even after the fire extinguisher was taken away from the 27-year-old, she reportedly continued to behave erratically, spitting and kicking at officers. She was eventually placed under arrest and taken to the Clayton County Jail. The 3 flight attendants who were sprayed in the face with the fire extinguisher were apparently treated for minor respiratory issues from the device at the scene, but are said to be fine. Holder, meanwhile, is now facing several charges, including obstructing law enforcement officers, 2 counts of simple assault, and 3 counts of simple battery. Authorities in the city of Grand Junction, Colorado, say that it was a miracle no one was killed this week after a 45-year-old man allegedly intentionally crashed his truck into the local police station during broad daylight. The incident took place at around 12:30 p.m. on January 25th, when 45-year-old Nathan Chacon reportedly drove directly into the lobby of the Grand Junction police station in his 2007 Chevy Silverado truck. Officers say that Chacon made no attempt to stop before hitting the building's front doors, and instead accelerated, leveling the front entrance and finally coming to a stop after slamming into a windowed wall equipped with bulletproof glass in the reception area. There were apparently 11 people working just behind that wall at the time, all of whom could have been injured or killed had the wall not been able to absorb the impact. Representatives from the police force say that it's even more miraculous that no members of the public were inside the station at the time. This is because the truck plowed directly through the main seating area where people are normally asked to wait while filling out reports or obtaining assistance. After the dramatic crash, police say that Chacon bizarrely admitted that he had intentionally driven his truck into the station, though claimed that he had an innocent explanation. He stated that he thought he was being followed by several cars after leaving his house that morning, and chose to crash into the police station because he didn't want to be killed and did so, quote, in order to be heard. It appears that this is far from the first time that Chacon has made these kinds of claims. According to police, the 45-year-old has made at least 90 calls over the past few years where he reported, quote, strange happenings that have been unfounded. Authorities further claim that in the days before the police station crash, Chacon had been calling them repeatedly. In several of these calls, he reportedly became frustrated with officers, hanging up on them and swearing at them over the phone. At the time of this recording, Chacon is now facing multiple charges, including attempted first-degree murder, attempted first-degree assault, attempted vehicular homicide, reckless driving, attempted vehicular assault, criminal mischief, and reckless endangerment. Grand Junction police say that they only have a rough estimate of the damage done to their station so far, but believe that repairs will cost more than $100,000, but less than $1 million. Authorities in Blue Earth County, Minnesota say that a local 36-year-old woman is facing charges this week after she allegedly attacked her boyfriend with quite the unusual weapon during a heated domestic dispute. According to reports, the situation began at around 7:30 p.m. on February 1st, when police were called to a residence in the city of Eagle Lake with reports of a domestic incident. They arrived to find two people, 36-year-old Natalie Brummer and her boyfriend, whose name has not been released. The boyfriend, who had placed the 911 call, said that he had been attacked by Brummer. He said that it had started when they were on their way home from a local bar together, and she reportedly began hitting him and spitting in his face while he was trying to drive. Things only escalated when they actually got home, culminating when Brummer allegedly grabbed a whole chicken and struck him multiple times in the back of the head with it. Police were inclined to believe the boyfriend for two pretty good reasons. Not only had Brummer already been arrested in December of 2021 for assaulting him, but when officers arrived at the scene this week, he apparently still had chicken residue from the alleged attack in his hair. In case you were wondering, no, reports do not mention whether the whole chicken in question was raw or cooked. When officers went to place Brummer under arrest, she was reportedly uncooperative. According to police, the 36-year-old continuously yelled, tried to move her hands away to avoid being handcuffed, and kicked her legs around. She was eventually taken to the Blue Earth County Jail, where she was charged with domestic assault and obstructing police.
Authorities in Flagler County, Florida say that they received a rather novel excuse from an alleged thief this week after he burglarized a gas station but left something important behind, which he claimed was proof that he never meant to steal anything. According to reports, the incident began in the early morning hours of February 5th when police were called to the scene of a security alarm at a gas station in Palm Coast. They arrived to find the front door to the building unlocked, even though it was supposed to be closed at the time. When officers reviewed surveillance footage at the business, they saw that a man had broken in through the back of the gas station a short time earlier and had grabbed several items, including antifreeze, cigarillos, an e-cigarette, and some dog food. He then left through the store's entrance, leaving the front door unlocked. Thanks to the video footage, police already had a pretty good idea of who was behind the burglary. The suspect looked exactly like 21-year-old Lance Kurtz, who had been involved in a vehicle fire the previous evening. All remaining doubt as to Kurtz's involvement apparently went out the window when police found another interesting piece of evidence at the crime scene. It was Kurtz's debit card, bearing his name, which he allegedly left on the business's counter. Even more bizarrely, when police caught up with Kurtz a short time later, he claimed that leaving behind his debit card hadn't been an accident, he'd done it on purpose. He stated that he had intended to return to the gas station later and pay for what he had taken, and wanted to leave behind his debit card, quote, just so they knew my name, you know? Unfortunately for Kurtz, officers soon explained to him that leaving behind his debit card did not actually absolve him from the burglary he had just committed. He was arrested and charged with armed burglary of a dwelling or structure, as well as petty theft.
Authorities in Martin County, Florida say that a disgruntled Philadelphia Eagles fan got his wings clipped this week after he went full bird brain inside of a local firehouse. According to reports, the incident began just after 10 p.m. when the angry football fan, later identified as 25-year-old Edward D'Alessandro, broke into the Hutchinson Island Fire Station on Northeast Ocean Boulevard in the city of Stuart. Once inside, the 25-year-old allegedly ransacked the bunk rooms, stole a uniform hat, some knives, and $126 cash. Oh yeah, he also pissed on an area of carpeted floor for some reason. When firefighters confronted D'Alessandro, he responded by throwing a meat cleaver at them. Fortunately, firefighters were able to restrain and hold the 25-year-old until police arrived. D'Alessandro was placed under arrest and is now facing several charges, including armed burglary, aggravated assault on a firefighter, and theft. As for a motive behind the crime, police haven't said for sure, though multiple reports insinuated that it had to do with the Eagles' Super Bowl loss that night. As stupid as that would surely be, it's unclear exactly why D'Alessandro thought the fire department was to blame. Unfortunately, there's no word on whether any of the firefighters were big Kansas City Chiefs fans. At the time of this recording, D'Alessandro remains in custody at the Martin County Jail on a $120,000 bond. Authorities in Seminole County, Florida say that a 24-year-old woman is facing multiple charges this week after she allegedly threatened several fast food workers with a gun and attacked one of them during an argument that started over a cookie. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on February 16th when 24-year-old Amari Hendricks went through the drive-thru at a McDonald's on South State Road 434 in Altamonte Springs. She pulled up to one of the windows and was reportedly in the process of receiving her food when there was a dispute over her order. In short, Hendricks apparently thought she was entitled to a free cookie. Though staff at the drive-thru did cave to the 24-year-old's demands for the cookie eventually, it apparently did nothing to calm the situation. In fact, she only got angrier, allegedly pulling out a black handgun, inserting a magazine, and chambering a round before pointing the gun at one of the workers. Several terrified employees ran for cover while one of them went to lock the restaurant's front door. However, by that time, Hendricks had already made her way there and was reportedly able to get inside. She allegedly attacked a male staff member, scratching his face and neck before police could be called to the scene. When officers arrived, Hendricks was still apparently uncooperative, though was eventually taken into custody. She's now facing several charges, including aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, battery, and resisting arrest. Unfortunately, there's no word on whether Hendricks got to eat her free cookie before she was taken to jail.
Authorities in Augusta, Georgia say that a local woman has been arrested and is facing charges this week after she allegedly deliberately drove her vehicle into a fast food restaurant because they messed up her order. The incident took place at around 7:45 p.m. on February 18th at the Popeyes Chicken Restaurant on Walton Way. According to reports, the situation began when a customer, later identified as 50-year-old Belinda Miller, became irate due to a mix-up with her order. In short, someone had forgotten to include her biscuits. Though staff rectified the issue and gave Miller her biscuits, it apparently did nothing to calm her down. Sensing something was up, another customer in line reportedly asked staff to hurry up with their order, telling them that they thought Miller was coming back. The customer's intuitions turned out to be correct. Police now say that after briefly leaving the fast food restaurant, Miller got behind the wheel of her SUV, which she proceeded to deliberately crash right into the building's left wall and front doors. Witnesses reportedly watched in horror as the 50-year-old narrowly missed an 18-year-old employee as she continued to try and force her vehicle farther inside to maximize the damage. Miller allegedly only stopped once debris from the crash physically prevented her SUV from going forward anymore. She then fled the scene. Officers reportedly caught up with Miller later on when she returned home. Her vehicle was apparently easy to spot because of all the damage to its front end. Miller was placed under arrest and is now facing charges including aggravated assault and first-degree criminal damage to property.
Authorities in Suffolk County, New York say that they are dealing with the fallout from the latest idiotic TikTok trend this week after they arrested several juveniles and an adult in connection with a crime inspired by the so-called Kool-Aid Man Challenge. The incident began at around 1 a.m. on February 20th when a homeowner in Centereach heard loud noises coming from outside his house. Surveillance cameras revealed that a group of 6 males had kicked down several sections of fence on his property. According to reports, the group returned about 3 hours later, this time to run through the fence simultaneously. Police arrested the suspects at around 4:15 a.m. that morning after a black vehicle they were in was witnessed driving near the scene. Police say that it was later revealed that the crime was inspired by the Kool-Aid Man challenge on TikTok. According to reports, the so-called prank involves participants attempting to run through fences, walls, or kick in doors while shouting, "Oh yeah," in an attempt to mimic the Kool-Aid Man mascot from the powdered drink product's iconic 90s and early 2000s commercials. According to reports, the suspects, identified only as 5 juveniles and an 18-year-old, are now facing charges of 3rd and 4th degree criminal mischief. Authorities say that the group are not the first to pull such a stunt in the area, as they have also had to deal with at least 2 other incidents in the county.
Representatives from the LAPD say that they're investigating a bizarre case this week after a man allegedly threatened to blow up an iconic California landmark, only to immediately be foiled by his apparent lack of knowledge of geography. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on February 19th when a man called police with an alarming threat. Unless they agreed to pay him $10,000, he was going to blow up the famous Hollywood sign that overlooks Los Angeles. While the situation was already quite strange to begin with, things almost immediately got even weirder. You see, the suspect had messed up. He wasn't on the phone with police in Hollywood, California. He had accidentally called authorities in Hollywood, Florida instead, a city roughly 2,700 miles away from his alleged target on the complete opposite side of the country. Of course, police in Florida still relayed the threat to their counterparts in Los Angeles. They were able to determine that the threat against the Hollywood sign was not credible. At the time of this recording, no arrests have apparently been made in the case, and it's unclear if investigators have identified the hapless suspect behind the bungled threat. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in Parker County, Texas say that a 42-year-old man is facing charges this week after he offered a bizarre excuse after allegedly being caught pretending to be a police officer. The incident took place sometime on the night of February 18th, when police received a call from a concerned citizen who was driving in the 1500 block of Newsom Mound Road. The caller said that a man in an unmarked blue Dodge pickup truck equipped with blue and red emergency lights on the dashboard was trying to pull him over. The caller explained that the pickup driver was following him extremely closely and had attempted to cut him off and block his vehicle from leaving the area. When officers arrived at the scene, they learned that the pickup driver, later identified as 42-year-old Luciano Amador Velasquez, had no association with any law enforcement agency. He was placed under arrest at the scene. When asked about what he was doing, Velasquez reportedly offered this bizarre response. He said that he wasn't happy with the victim's driving and that he often used the flashing lights on his vehicle to, quote, make people drive better. The 42-year-old was subsequently charged with a felony count of impersonating a public servant. Authorities in Volusia County, Florida say that a man is lucky to be alive this week after he was part of a group of motorcyclists that allegedly pulled dangerous stunts on local roads and ended up getting hit by a truck while trying to flee from police. The incident began sometime on the night of March 3rd when officers from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office spotted a group of motorcycle riders popping wheelies while driving on the Old Dixie Highway. When police attempted to pull the drivers over, they refused to stop, instead speeding up in an attempt to escape. As the chase began, they continued to drive recklessly, weaving in and out of traffic and traveling at high speeds. The pursuit continued until the intersection of North Beach Street and West Granada Boulevard, where the group blew through a red light. That's when one of the suspects, later identified as Joshua Richardson, apparently decided to get cocky. While heading through the intersection, he looked back at police and stuck up his middle finger. Unfortunately for Richardson, he wouldn't be getting the last laugh. While distracted by his own antics, he didn't notice an incoming pickup truck, which T-boned him just seconds later. While Richardson miraculously survived the high-impact collision, his attempts to flee the scene on foot immediately afterwards were short-lived. When police caught up to him and placed him under arrest, he was writhing on the ground. In body camera footage of the incident taken by responding deputies, Richardson could be heard saying that his leg was hurt. Police, understandably, had little sympathy, with one officer saying, quote, "You know how your leg doesn't get hurt? You don't run from the cops and crash your bike." Apparently outraged, Richardson replied, "Do you think this is funny?" Only to be chided by another officer who said, quote, "No, I don't think it's funny. It's incredibly stupid." According to reports, Richardson is now facing a number of charges, including fleeing or attempting to elude law enforcement, resisting without violence, and leaving the scene of a crash. He was also slapped with traffic citations for failure to stop at a red light and passing in a no-pass zone. At the time of this recording, authorities have not stated whether they were able to arrest the other motorcyclist that Richardson was with, or whether there were any other injuries. Representatives from the Manitoba branch of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were apparently prompted to put out a public service announcement this week after they had to caution a woman about abusing the 911 system when she called them to complain about the wait at a fast food restaurant. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on February 23rd when the unidentified woman dialed the emergency number while at a new Burger King location in the city of Steinbach. Police say that she called because she was angry that, in her words, the line at the drive-thru was too long. Understandably, she was told that this did not constitute an emergency and was warned not to call for something like this in the future. The Manitoba RCMP tweeted about the incident the following day, saying in part, quote, "We realize you aren't you when you're hangry, but this is not a valid reason to dial 911. All joking aside, RCMP spokesman Tara Seal reminded the public in an interview with the CBC that this kind of thing is actually rooted in a serious issue, saying, quote, "When you call 911 for a non-emergent matter, that can tie up an operator who could be dealing with a real emergency." Seal went on to say that the Burger King woman isn't the only person they've had to caution about this recently. Apparently, and prepare yourself, because this is quite the Canadian stereotype, they had to tell someone else off after they called 911 to ask where they could find a Zamboni for that weekend, presumably so that they could resurface a hockey rink. So, let me be the first to say on behalf of my fellow Canadians out there, that is truly embarrassing. And let's all try to stop f***ing doing that in the future. Authorities in Pinellas County, Florida say that a local woman made her ongoing legal troubles even worse for herself last month when she tried to fraudulently pass a urine test and didn't even bother trying to use actual pee. According to reports, 44-year-old Shannon Hunter already had quite the lengthy rap sheet before any of this went down, though this particular series of events was set off by a pair of recent felony drug and theft charges. As a result of pleading guilty to possessing painkillers without a prescription, she was required to submit to regular urine tests as part of her probation to stay out of jail. The problem was, Hunter never actually stopped using painkillers, so when she was supposed to show up for her first urinalysis test on February 23rd, she knew that her sample would come back dirty, so to speak. That's when she apparently came up with a harebrained scheme to try and keep herself out of trouble. She filled up a prescription bottle with liquid, inserted it into her vagina, and went to the test. Of course, as you might have already guessed, the fine folks who administer these tests weren't born yesterday. They know that people try to cheat, and as it turns out, the old pill bottle in the vagina trick isn't all that original. As a result, Hunter was quickly caught. What was a little more novel, though, was the 44-year-old's choice of liquid. Instead of trying to use clean urine brought or provided by someone else, Hunter reportedly went for a homemade concoction: soda and tap water. It's unclear why Hunter thought this would work, as obviously urinalysis tests are a lot more sophisticated than someone just checking to see if a sample looks like pee. In this case, it's doubtful that the fake urine would have even passed the literal smell test, unless the testers were just supposed to believe that Hunter had like the world's worst case of diabetes. As usual, though, with crimes this ridiculous, we're probably overthinking it. Chances are Hunter just had no idea how the test worked in the first place. She has since pleaded no contest to a misdemeanor charge of urinalysis fraud and was sentenced to 20 days in jail in order to pay court costs totaling $500. Unfortunately, there's no word on what kind of soda she used to try and make her fake pee, though sources have speculated that it was likely Sprite or Mountain Dew. Authorities in St. Petersburg, Florida say that a vandalism suspect earned a major eye roll from them this week when he was caught after allegedly causing significant damage to a vehicle, only to chalk the whole thing up to some simple spring break shenanigans. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the evening of March 16th when a couple who were out for dinner spotted a man doing something suspicious near their vehicle. When they came out of a local restaurant called the Toasted Monkey, they realized that the suspect had been using a butter knife to, over want of a better phrase, scratch the shit out of their Nissan. The suspect ran off, but left the butter knife lying on the ground at the scene. The damage done to the vehicle was later estimated to be in excess of $1,000. When police reviewed surveillance footage taken outside of the restaurant, they were able to find video of the suspect in the act. He wasn't exactly a criminal mastermind. Not only had he been caught on camera, but staff immediately recognized him because he had been a patron at the restaurant that night. He had even put down his cell phone number on the Toasted Monkey's waiting list. Using this, police were able to identify him as Clifford Craig Edwards. During an interview, Edwards admitted to what he had done, but described it as simply a, quote, spring break mistake. This might have been believable if, for instance, as the news outlet The Smoking Gun put it, Edwards had been your typical college student sharing a hotel room with 8 friends. You know, kids getting drunk, partying with their friends, and acting like idiots. However, that was not the case. You see, Edwards is a 52-year-old real estate executive from Missouri. In other words, it appears that he's just a regular idiot. Anyway, Edwards was arrested on a felony criminal mischief charge for his antics. He was apparently bailed out of the county jail the next day by his wife, who I'm sure was thrilled to hear about what he had been up to the previous night. Authorities in Brevard County, Florida say that a 26-year-old woman is facing several charges this week after she was allegedly the latest person to pull a gun on a fast food employee because she got upset while in the drive-thru line. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on March 16th when the suspect, later identified as 26-year-old Quavee Young, pulled up to the drive-thru at a McDonald's location in the city of Cocoa. When it came time to order, she allegedly asked for something that wasn't on the menu. Employees at the restaurant reportedly explained that they wouldn't be able to help Young, something which she apparently already knew because this was actually her second time at the drive-thru that day. However, this time, Young apparently wasn't taking no for an answer. When asked why she was upset, Young allegedly pulled out a handgun, waved it at the worker, and threatened to, quote, push her shit back. The 26-year-old then reportedly drove to the second drive-thru window with the gun still in her lap. In the meantime, employees called 911. When officers arrived, they found Young in possession of the handgun, which was allegedly equipped with a drum-style magazine capable of carrying 50 rounds of ammunition. Young was arrested and is now facing charges including aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without intent to kill, open carry of a weapon, and driving with a suspended license. Unfortunately, reports do not mention the item that the 26-year-old tried to order that wasn't on the McDonald's menu. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.